President, please be seated. The court is now back in session, and the floor is given to the defense team for Mr. Nguyen to resume its questioning. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, let me finish this subject about Son Sen in the battlefield. I know you don't accept the testimony of Lak Min, but let me nevertheless confront you with what he said 2 months ago in this courtroom on the 26th of April at around 14:29.
President, please wait, counsel. Lak Min, please pronounce it correctly with the names, otherwise the witness is confused with another individual. And another witness is Pin, not Pin. So one time I heard Pin, and another time I heard Pin. So the actual name is Pin.
Mr. President, before we move on to the next subject, I had assumed counsel was going to actually advise the court of the telegram that he had cited. It should be noted the telegram that he mentioned just before the break, in which Comrade Pin is injured, document E3/1117. Let me just make it clear for the record what this telegram says. Comrade Pin has been injured again by the eternal enemy. His vehicle ran over an anti-tank mine laid by the enemy. And then later on it explains Comrade Pin himself was lightly wounded and is able to talk by field telephone. Interestingly, too, this telegram is from Son Sen himself, using the code number he used while on the battlefield, 47. So this is actually a telegram sent while Son Sen was on the battlefield. And the fact, 47, yes. The fact that Comrade Pin was not injured in this incident, is also seriously injured, is also reflected in a telegram 1 week later, E3/859, which reports he was still at the battlefield at that time.
Mr. President, I don't need to go into the discussion. The reason I was using this telegram because it describes the actual incident, a vehicle running over an anti-tank mine, which is exactly the same thing that Duik had referred to in his own statement. But let me move away from this. I'm sure we will have submissions on this subject. I was referring you to Lak Min, and I said I know you don't acknowledge Lak Min's testimony. However, on the 26th of April 2016, in this courtroom at 14:29, he said that in 1978 he saw Son Sen 3 or 4 times during the period that he worked as an interrogator, which was 1978. Maybe you can just give a quick reaction, Mr. Witness.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. President, before I answer the question, I would like to clarify the last question put by the counsel before the break. He made a mention about the date, 18 August 1978, there was a session that was held by Sun Sen, correction from interpreter, 18 April 1978. In fact, the 17 April 1978 was the celebration of victory against the Lunol regime. It was special on that day because Pol Pot chaired that celebration, and the participants included Uncle Nguyen, Brother Chuan Chuan, Brother Von, and Brother Haim. They were on the stage. It was on that day, a little bit before that time, the arrest of C happened. C alias Chu Chet. That happened before April. I asked Bong about the arrest of Chu Chet. I asked Bong whether Brother Won had been in the meeting to decide the arrest of Chu Chet. So I am sure that Brother Sun Sen did not chair the meeting on the 18th April 1978, and the celebration of victory against the Lon Nol regime was chaired by Pol Pot and Von Wet, killed some Brother Haim, and two other individuals were present on the stage. Concerning the question in relation to Lai Mien testimony, I do not recognize the statement of Lai Mien concerning his role at S21 in the proceeding of case 001 against me.
Fine, thank you, Mr. Witness. Let me move to my next subject, and that is the evidence that you gave in relation to your overall position in the party's hierarchy. Now, one of your very last WRIs in the case 3 and 4, your testimony on the 1st of February 2016, Mr. President, I don't think there is an E3 number yet, but it is document E319/42.3.1, question and answer 8, so it's the same in all languages. Mr. Witness, you called yourself, quote unquote, a medium level cadre. What did you mean with that when you said that?
The average cadres were used by me and also by CPK. Mid-level cadres. Mid-level cadre entered the party a long time ago, but was not yet a member. And that mid-level cadre could enter any offices. And for those who became members of the party, were considered cadres of the center. For example, Bong and Uncle Haim were members of the center. Again, mid-level cadre could only lead or supervise an office.
Did you, at one point in time, in an interview with Nate Thayer, also call yourself a party member at its lowest level?
President, please hold on, Mr. Witness. You have the floor first. International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Yes, just two quick points. One, just a request for the references, ERN, and document references for the Nate Thayer quote. Second, just a housekeeping matter. I think the interview that counsel quoted from before, E319.42.3.1, was one of the Doik interviews we had identified in a 87-4 motion and suggested that they should be admitted during Doik's testimony. I don't think the court has, I don't know if the court has formally ruled on the request we filed. If I did, perhaps I missed the ruling. But there was we sent an email before the start of Doik's testimony with two of his WRIs that the defense hadn't included and a confession, one of the underlying documents from the OCIJ list. The trial chamber asked us to file a formal request, which we did back a couple weeks ago, but I don't think there's been a ruling on it. But I think that these documents should be formally admitted before counsel uses them, and of course we agree to their admission.
President, the chamber decides that the document is admitted as evidence by the chamber, and the reasonings for the decision will be issued in due course. And counsel and concerned parties can use the document or those documents for the basis of questioning the witness.
Thank you, Mr. President. Answering the first question, I'm referring to E3/347, English ERN only, 00002523. So my question again, Mr. Witness, you call yourself a party member at its lowest level. Did you indeed say that? And if yes, what did you mean with that?
Thank you, counsel. Concerning the issue between me and Nate Thayer, I did have very minimal conversation with him. I believe that happened on the 24th April 1999, I went to Monorom Hotel in Battambang, and the interviewer was Christophe Pessu, the former deputy of OCHR in Cambodia, and Hammerberg was the director at the time. Mademoiselle, Madame Ruth Hugo was also there, and the one who assisted me in psychological support at the time was Christophe Pessu. And Heng Ham Kane was the interpreter. I did not have much conversation with Nate Thayer. He once went to some load and showed me the Kong Kieng's document. And after that interview or the meetings, statements were known and were seen in the documents. And perhaps there was not good translation of the statements that I gave. I was party member of the lower level, not the lowest level. And I was the party member who had joined the party for quite some time, and perhaps at the time we did not understand each other between the in language communication. There was clear procedure in hierarchy within the CPK.
It might have been indeed the PESHU interview, but let me move on to my next question. That is also about your position in the hierarchy, or at least how you considered yourself. I've put in a binder for you something you and your lawyer said on your behalf. It's document E3/5725, English ERN 00145457, Khmer 00145434, French 00145476. It's in the green folder. Mr. Witness, it's in the green folder, the other one. Mr. Witness. I have put more than one folder. It's actually the green folder which is lying there.
President, court officers, please assist the witness in finding documents, and I hope the document in question could be found quickly by the witness.
Yes, so whenever, Mr. Witness, I'm going to something you said yourself, I will go to that binder that you have in your hand. In that testimony, or in that statement, one can read that your lawyer called you or said that you were the equivalent of a colonel in the hierarchy. In that statement, you can also read that you didn't study with highest ranking cadres, but with those at the battalion and regiment level. And your lawyer is also quoted as saying something you endorsed, that you were, quote unquote, very distant from those at the high level. Do you remember saying this, and do you remember your lawyer saying that?
Thank you, Mr. President. The issue has something to do with the understanding of Francois Roux, and he perhaps did not understand the register used by the Khmer Rouge. I did not deny that I was the secretary of a regiment, the independent regiment. That means the regiment was not under any other brigades or divisions. So I was not a high-level cadre, but I was the cadre in the low level. And that happened because we did not understand each other due to language difficulty.
Let me interrupt you, Mr. Witness. It wasn't Francois Roux who said that on your behalf. It was Mr. Karsavout who said it on your behalf. He said that you were the equivalent of a colonel in the hierarchy, and that you were very distant from those at the high level. And you agreed with him. You were asked that question. So please, do you remember this, and can you give a reaction to that?
Correction from the interpreter. The witness said he was the mid-level cadre. President, please wait. Witness, Judge Lavenge, you have the floor.
Maître Copé.
Yes. Counsel Kope, can you recall the date on which that statement was made? It's remarkable that it was a statement made as part of a debate regarding provisional detention. It was not on the merits or hearings on the merits.
Et alors, I would say in French, it's argued on his behalf. I don't think it matters where, on what occasion it was.
Et alors, Maître Copé,
And so, Mr. Kope, it appears that at the time, Dirk was not examined on the merits. It was a statement that didn't have to do with the merits. In any case, I think it is important for the record.
Mr. Witness, did your lawyer, Karsavoet, call you a colonel, the equivalent of a colonel, and that, with your endorsement, he said that you were very distant from those at the highest level, at the high level?
Mr. President, from what I heard, Judge Levent prohibited the counsel from asking the same issue. So the same question on the same issue was put by counsel. So does the chamber allow me to answer the question? President Duc, you are allowed to answer the question. The statement made, the intervention made by Judge Lavenge was to have the proper records in the transcript. So the parties is entitled to put question and quote the intervention by your defense lawyer during the proceedings in case 001, and judge is entitled to have the observation to make a proper record in the transcript. So that was the statement of your defense counsel back then, and the question by Cooper is about your reaction to that statement. So what is your reaction? Witness. Thank you, Mr. President, and allow me to make a clarification in relation to the question by Cooper as follows. Within CPK, the ranks, for example, Colonel, 6, strikes, 7 strikes, was not used. I was a mid-level cadre. I was not the party member of the center. Brother Pin was not also the member of the center. There were 2 cadres from the staff, central staff, who were members of the center, Mate and Mot and Nate. Nat, I, Thun, and others were invited to a study session chaired by Sun Sen. So above me, there was committee of a division. And above the division, there were cadres of the center. For example, Pong, Mate, were the assistants to the center, and there were also candidate members of the center. And there were full right members of the center above the candidate members. So in terms of hierarchical orders, there were many cadres above me. This is what I can explain you in relation to the hierarchy. So that was his analysis in relation to my rank. And as I said, I was the secretary of an independent regiment, and above me there was a division.
And is it correct that you were only allowed to study with those at the battalion and regiment level?
In the regiment, there were battalions and companies. I supervised members in my regiment. Ho was deputy secretary of the regiment, and Hui was a member of the regiment committee. And later on, I promoted Comrade Paul to regimental level. As for Peng, was at company level, and Hum Hui was at a platoon level. So my regiment capacity was only within S21 hierarchy, and it did not interact or interfere with the other regiments.
Let me see if I can approach it from another direction. Mr. Witness, you compared yourself with someone else in terms of hierarchy, and that is document E3/106. That's also in the green binder, I think. English ERN 00177635. Khmer 7625, and French 00177646. In this WRI E3/106, Mr. Witness, you said that during the regime you had the same rank as Prime Minister Hun Sen, that is the commander of a regiment. Is that correct?
From 17 April to the 7 January 1979, I never heard of Hun Sen's name, and only after 1990, or maybe before that, Hun Sen became the Minister of Foreign Affairs in 1978 or 79, and that was the time that I heard of his name. And I asked people about him, and people said that before he fled to Vietnam, to Yun country, he was a secretary of a regiment, and before that he was a secretary of a special battalion, and it was a special position he held there. And that was what I knew about Hun Sen's position within the rank. And I said that he and I were at the same level, and that's what I made a comparison. That is my position and the position of the current Prime Minister.
Let me follow up on this, because in that same statement you said the following. Hun Sen at the time had the same rank as me, that is commander of a regiment, but he had combatants under his orders and was at the border, which was not the case for me. End of quote. What does that distinction exactly mean?
Hun Sen had the soldiers under his command in his regiment, and they were fighting along the Cambodia-June border. Let's say he would take his soldiers to walk for 10 kilometers, and probably it took him 2 hours, and his soldiers were fully armed, and nobody dared to get in his way. As for me, I had nothing. I could not do that. That's the comparison that I referred to. So Hun Sen could flee to Vietnam with his fully armed soldiers, but for me, I could not do that because I had nothing.
Well, that brings me to my next subject. The nature and character of Regiment 21, or S21. In your testimony, E3/453, English 0014757983, Khmer 00146572, French 00147944. You said that S21 was part of the military, and in E3/347 you said that at English 00002523 we were considered an armed force. Also, you gave extensive testimony as to the military character of Regiment 21, being under the subordinate of the General Staff. So, Mr. Witness, isn't it true there is not really any contradiction between the S21 regiment in terms of military hierarchy and the regiment of Prime Minister Hun Sen?
Allow me to speak about the regiment within the General Staff of the Center's Army. And the independent regiments included S21 and the regiment of Brother Win, that is closer detects the garment factory, and another regiment of PIP, that is the artillery, and another regiment in charge of telecommunications. So, for people who are familiar with the general staff, would know about this structure. As for PIN had a regiment under his supervision, and that is a separate structure since they had combat forces. Then they had the regiment of infantry, a regiment of reconnaissance, and regiment of special force. Like Ho was from the special force from 703, and he was assigned as deputy secretary of S21. As for the regiment under Hun Sen's command, he led the regiment far from me, so I do not want to make any comment on that.
Let's move away from him, but let's return to what I'm actually trying to get at. In that same interview that I referred to, E3/347, same English ERN only, there's a literal transcript of your interview, and it goes as follows. So, were you civilian or military? And then you say, we were considered armed force. Question, and thus military? Yes. So isn't it true that from the very beginning of its creation until the very end, S21 or Regiment 21 was a military organization, a militarily run organization?
Allow me to clarify it, Your Honor. Regarding the independent regiments of the Secretary of the General Staff, means that they were an entire entity by themselves, and I don't think there is any question about this.
So you do not dispute that you were a military officer from the very beginning until at the end of S21's existence, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now let me discuss two documents with you. They are in your binder. One document is E3/849. Mr. President, English ERN 00183956, French 003349995, Khmer 00052319, and in your folder, in your black folder, your black folder, Mr. Witness, it's number 4. And maybe we can have it on the screen as well. With your leave, Mr. President.
Yes, you may proceed.
Here it is on the screen as well. Mr. Witness, this is a document dated 7th of April 1977, and it's called Joint Statistics of Armed Forces over the period of March 1977. And it lists the various divisions and military offices. And you can find under number 13 between the other military divisions, Office S21. And there it says that the total number of combatants that were part of Regiment 21 was 2,327. Do you see that number, Mr. Witness?
Thank you. Yes, I see it.
And in the next column, it says not including components, or in the French, sans compter les éléments. That refers presumably to prisoners. But is it correct that in March 77, Regiment 21 had about 2,327 combatants?
Thank you. And the column that reads not including components. Previously, I believe that the figure did not include prisoners in Phnom Penh. However, after I rethink about this, it means this figure did not include those at the rice fields. But as I maintained that I did not have a concrete figure, and the number included those that had to be fed, and that might exclude prisoners who were chained or who were being interrogated. And the statistic shows the food regime and the expenses for prisoners and staff at S21.
I'm not sure if I completely follow, but let me check. Are you saying that that number of 2,327 included the prisoners?
I am not sure about that. So maybe some components were not included, as the word components or samasapip is too general. So it might exclude those who were sent for re-education at the rice fields, or maybe my combatants at the rice fields. Although they were referred to as combatants at the rice fields, they did not have full rice as they were being refashioned. So I am uncertain as what were excluded from this figure.
Well, let me see if I can assist you by showing you another document, which is also in that same binder, Mr. Witness. That's E3/1136. English ERN 00543 743, Khmer 00160081, French 00548764. It's a document which is called a rice consumption plan, and it dates the 4th of January 1976. I hope you can find it, Mr. Witness. It's it's not in your binder. I'm just told. Sorry for that. Maybe we can show it on the screen, and then you can have a look on the screen, Mr. Witness. This is a rice consumption plan for all military divisions, including Regiment 21. But it was the time that Comrade Sem, or Nat, was still in charge. And you will see on the number 11 that Unit 21 consisted of about 2,048 members. So that's Khmer page 00160081. There it is. Maybe you can go to number 11, Mr. Witness. If you have difficulty reading on the screen, Mr. Witness, I have a printed copy for you. If you don't need it, so this document being from January 1976, I don't think there were many prisoners at Presar. Maybe Presar wasn't founded at all yet. Is it correct that Regiment 21 consisted of about 2,000 combatants in January 76?
Mr. President, regarding the management of staff of the forces, I was not directly involved. As I said, the leaders, Brother Son Sen and Brother Noon, actually focused the work on the confessions of the enemy. So it is difficult for me to provide you with a concrete response, Council, because I cannot provide you a concrete one, although I may make my conclusion regarding the rice consumption of fuel consumption for use, including the medicines. They were all covered and distributed by the General Staff. So the General Staff had all this list of the consumption and distribution. I myself did not involve in that. And as I said, my chief only focused my work on the confessions of the enemy.
I'm not sure if I can follow you in this answer, Mr. Witness. You were the chairman of Regiment 21. Surely you would at least be able to tell us how many combatants were in the regiment that you led.
Allow me to remind you, Council, that when I first questioned by the chamber, I said that combatants from 703 who became part of I-21 were between 300 to 600. And I also had 17 combatants that I took from land, and I did not pay focus on the total statistics. As for the rice consumption of food, it was the responsibility of the General Staff. And allow me to clear the matter. Since I was the Deputy Chief, by October or mid-October, I took that position and I stopped collecting documents from houses. From the houses of the senior Colonial regime officers and officers. And whenever Son Sen called, Nat and I would go together. Son Sen never called Nat to go alone. As for other divisions, Son Sen only called the secretaries of the divisions for meetings. And later on, when Nat was removed, I alone went to see him, and Ho did not accompany me. So he only called me to update him on the confessions and the progress of the confessions of the enemy. And we also saw surviving documents from the General Staff about the meetings held at the rice fields. And I did not go there since Comrade Hui was in charge there. And before I see documents, that is the work of the General Staff on the rice consumption plan, etc., I still thought that Division 703 only gave me 300 to 600 staff, that is soldiers from their division. So I did not pay attention to the overall figure of staff at S21.
So let me get this right. You're the chairman of Regiment 21, but basically you, if this document is correct, you have no idea what about 2,000 or 1,900 men of your regiment were in fact doing, correct?
Mr. President, I have reiterated the points several times. Initially, S21 belonged to NAD, and the detention and the interrogation was at Tak Mau Hospital. And later on, they had another office in Phnom Penh, and that was the initial founding of S21. And I joined S21 by mid-October. At the time, I myself interrogated some prisoners, and I taught staff how to interrogate prisoners. Finally, Nat was reassigned. However, he still had authority to finish off his remaining works at S21. As for me, although I was secretary of the regiment, the party entrusted in me, and that I should focus only on the confessions of the enemy, and others would take care in terms of the rice consumptions and other works. And my superior never questioned me at all about the rice productions in the rice fields, not at all. And surviving documents actually were the evidence to that effect.
Let me move to another document, Mr. Witness, that is, I think, in your binder. It's E3/1585. It is a list of participants of the first General Staff Training, English ERN 00897649, Khmer 00095532, and French 006116636. And in your binder it is number 11 in your folder. There's actually 2 pages I put in your document. It lists the participants of this first General Staff Training, all the division members, Division 310, Division 450, etc., etc. It also says Office 62, 37 cadres, and you are participant 284, Hor 286, Hui 287, but you are listed as a member of Office 62. Do you know why it was that you and Hor and Hui and others were listed as participants coming from Office 62?
Regarding Office 62, it was an office in charge of logistics. Initially, Brother Sao was assigned to take charge of this logistic office, and it is not my office, that is not Office 62. Regarding letters or documents that I wrote to Brother Sun Sen, usually I address him as to Brother 62, and messengers from the general staff knew that it was meant to Brother Kiel, that is Sun Sen. So Office 62 had 37 staff. So that refers to their logistics office under the supervision of Brother Sao.
But in this document, you were also considered to be part of Office 62. Do you remember whether there was a reason for that you were considered as a member of the general staff?
When I was called for to attend study sessions, and that I went along with Sun Sen, I went in my capacity as Office S21. And when I attended study sessions with others, that is when Comrade Saum made or provided lectures during those trainings, and the office he instructed that S21 should not be used and that Office 62 should be used instead, and that is what happened.
But my point is whether S21 was a part of the General Staff Office from the beginning until the end. Let me try it differently, Mr. Witness, and that will be my last question, Mr. President. Maybe you can have a look at document E3/2028. That's document 15 in your binder. It's Khmer ERN 00021 English 00185-219. That's the prisoners list from S21, Mr. Witness. And various people who belonged to S21, for instance, number 3, Nem Tai, ex-Economic Support Unit, Li Tong, Deputy Chief of the Mapping Group, all these cadres from S21 who were arrested were called or were considered to be prisoners from the General Staff Office. Do you see that document, Mr. Witness?
មាននៅក្នុងគ្រឿងណូត
Counsel, you sure that the document is part of the dossier before witness? And court officer, please assist the witness since the document shown on the screen is not that clear.
It's document number 15 in your binder. E3/2028. So, Mr. Witness, prisoners who worked for S21, even in July 78, were still considered to be prisoners coming from the General Staff Office.
Regarding the General Staff Office, as I made mention earlier, it refers to the Logistics Office or Office 62. As for prisoners who were arrested, it is likely that most of them came from the Logistics Office. And of course, Logistics Office was under the direct supervision of the General Staff Office Committee. And S21 was not under the direct supervision of the General Staff Office Committee, as our primary work was to obtain the confessions of the enemy. But the General Staff would take care of supplies and logistics. And S21 was directly under 870 in terms of confessions of the enemy. So we could say that S21 was part of the General Staff, since we obtained food, fuel, batteries, etc. from the General Staff. And the decision will be made from the General Staff Office. And when we got sick, we had to go to the hospital, and our role would mean that we were part of the General Staff. The only exception was the confessions of the enemy, that it has to be exclusively sent to 870. And that was the organizational structure of S21. That's why it is labeled as an independent regiment, and the food supplies and logistics were decided and made by the General Staff Office. and only the enemy's confessions were sent directly from I-71 through 870. President, thank you, and thank you, witness. It is now appropriate for lunch break. We take a break now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon to continue our proceedings. Security personnel, you are instructed to take you some porn, as well as can get you a list to separate the waiting rooms downstairs, and have Mr. Kisampo returns to the court before 1:30. As for Dutch, have him returned at 1:30 this afternoon. The court is now in recess.